While writers like Ralph Ellison and James Baldwin brought home the intersection of race and gender in their fiction and non-fiction, focusing on what it meant to be black and male in America in the first half of the 20th century, various women writers took up the task of focusing the intersection of gender and race in the second half of the century. Third-wave feminism brought race into the discussion, forcing a recognition of race and with it, class, into the mainstream of feminist thinking. Let's look at 3 women who made a difference to this conversation. Begun in 1975, This Bridge Called My Back is an ongoing project, having been through several editions since then. Anseldua and Moraga offer a collection of writings of women of color in America talking about their academic and non-academic relevance and the battles that they have to fight just to be heard in forums that are heavily guarded by white, often male, but also female privilege. Anseldua points out that race itself is such a powerful characteristic that sexuality is not even recognized as being of any significance. She says, quote, "Unlikely to be friends of people in high literary places, the beginning of women of color is invisible both in the white male mainstream world and in the white feminist world. Though in the latter, this is gradually changing. The lesbian of color is not only invisible, she doesn't even exist. Our speech, too, is inaudible. We speak in tongues like the outcast and the insane."
Remember we briefly mentioned womanism in the segment on class? Let's get back to this movement with regard to race. Alice Walker found Western feminism so lacking in intersectionality that she introduced a whole new kind of movement and called it womanism. She defines a womanist as, I quote, "a black feminist or feminist of color, from the black folk expression of mother to female children, and also a woman who loves other women, sexually or non-sexually. Someone who appreciates and prefers women's culture, committed to survival and wholeness of entire people, male and female." Unquote. Womanism recognizes the oppression of black women by black men, but includes in its vision the oppression of black men by white men, and recognizes that consciousness raising must be effected on both men and women together. If change is to happen, it must involve everyone, men and women and people of whatever gender or sexuality they may be. Her best-selling book, The Color Purple, gives a fictional account of how this can happen.
We get our segment heading from Barbara Christian's 1977 book, The Race for Theory, in which she takes on Western academia, highlighting the ways in which certain kinds of writing are privileged over others, excluding certain kinds of academics, especially women of color. In her book, she says, quote, "Theory has become a commodity that helps determine whether we are hired or promoted in academic institutions, worse, whether we are heard at all," unquote. At the height of the obscure theoretical writing trend, she confronts the postmodern idea that identity is a constructed thing and can be discarded entirely by pointing to the need for women of color to first establish their own identity and position before having the luxury of moving into a post-identity world. Functioning largely within American academia, these women and others like them spearheaded third-wave feminism, bringing race and with it class and sexuality into the movement, and forcing a recognition of the importance of intersectionality for a complete understanding of gender.